Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're back again with another episode of the Lights Camera Discussion podcast. I'm here with the one and only collective unit and the Geordie himself, Todorov. Guys, welcome. How are we doing today?
Morning.
Thank you. All right.
Excellent. Excited for this episode here?
Yeah,
Very
looking
much
forward to it.
I believe one of us is definitely excited, but we'll see how that goes as we chat about it. So last episode was obviously about Ari Aster. It was kind of divisive, I suppose. Certainly one person enjoyed it more than the others. But again, if you're listening, if you're watching, and you enjoyed it, or you still have to listen to it, please go back and have a look on YouTube and on Spotify, and of course, give us a like and subscribe as well. So guys, let's get into today's episode. Today we're obviously speaking about Jordan Peele, the interesting director. Now, Collie, do you want to give us a quick blurb about Mr. Peele?
Yeah, of course. I definitely wrote this myself.
Good.
Jordan Howarth Peele, born February the 21st, 1979, is an American actor, comedian, and filmmaker known for his film and television work in the comedy and horror genres. Peele started his career in sketch comedy before transitioning his career as a writer and director of psychological horror and satirical films. In 2017, Peele was included on the annual Time 100 list of the most influential people in the world.
Wow. It's a fair
There we
list,
go.
isn't it? Yeah.
I didn't even write that down. Just came to me naturally.
Off the top of your head.
Off the top of your head, yeah.
Top of the dome. I love it. So today we're also talking about there's three films that we'll be going through. First of all is Get Out, then Us, and then Nope, which came out just last year, wasn't it? I think it came out. So let's just get straight into it. Let's get going with it. So first of all, we have Get Out, which was released in 2017. It's about a young African-American visits his white girlfriend's parents for the weekend, where his simmering uneasiness about the reception of him eventually reaches a boiling point. Again, that was like Collie, that was off the top of my head as well.
I mean,
It's doing really well this morning.
Great improvisers, aren't we? Now, first impressions. So, I kind of know how one person thinks about this, but I'd really like to hear about the other person. So, Collie, do you want to kick us off here with Get Out and what your first impressions of the film were?
So this seems to be a running trend on this podcast, is me going, I don't really like horror films, but I just seem to be watching them exclusively. I watched this when it came out. I didn't go to the cinema to see it, but the first opportunity I got to see it at home, I made sure that I did, just because of the hype surrounding it. I knew of Jordan Peele through his comedy and the like, so I wasn't sure how it would go. And again, like, not particularly liking horror, similar to a lot of the films that we've watched and discussed so far on the podcast. I really, really enjoyed it because it's not a cheesy jump scare type horror. It's down that trend of modern psychological unnerving type things with some sprinkles of comedic relief in it, which is kind of, I think, obviously Peele leaning on his experiences with comedy and blending that in. For example, Daniel Kaluuya's friend is good comedy relief throughout whenever he gets on the phone with him. But overall, first impressions at the time was that I really enjoyed it, and on subsequent rewatches, I probably watched it maybe 5-6 times or something like that in the last 6 years, and I've came away every time really, really enjoying it.
Good stuff. Todd?
Yeah, so like I say, no secret that I love this film. Like, I love Jordan Peele, like from the off, in terms of his sketch writing and stuff. And for me, like, the whole SNL sort of, I don't think he is SNL alumni at all, but like that sort of American sketch comedy doesn't always land for me. And I feel like 90% of the stuff that Key and Peele did absolutely landed and still does, like, on repeat viewing. And I think, like Collie said, it just kind of lends itself to horror and to comedy. Like, both of those things tread like quite a fine line. But yeah, I loved that it, like I said, it took a different sort of direction. Around the sort of like 2015 to 2018 era, you had like a lot of those, again, films that I like Lights Out, like Bye Bye Man, stuff like that, where it's like jump scare, almost generic feeling horror, and this was completely different. I'm trying not to say too much about how much I love it, but Daniel Kaluuya as well is, I think this was the thing that made me sort of stand up and realise how good he was. because he was just Posh Kenneth from Skins to me. That's do you know what I mean? He'd been in a couple of other things like Psychoville and stuff, but this was his big sort of his defining thing for me. Massey.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to just echo the sentiments that you guys have said. It's for me, like, again, watching it. This is actually the second time I've watched it, so I watched it sort of roughly when it first came out and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I almost feel like I enjoy it more on rewatch because you can kind of find the little bits and pieces that hint towards where the film's going. So yeah, a wonderful, wonderful film in my eyes. So I know Todd there, you're wanting to kind of touch on Mr. Kaluuya. So do you want to kind of take it away with what he did in this film that made you kind of stand up and recognize him for what he is?
Yeah. I think there's such a level of unease from the beginning, and he's clearly in like a healthy relation, or what appears to be a very healthy relationship that's quite fresh, it's quite new, where they're really happy. But there's always something about him that is uneasy, and obviously that's like the trauma that he's carrying, and those bits and pieces of his life that you kind of have to put together from the beginning. I just think the guy has such an expressive face that he does so much with like really subtle movements. I feel like I'm diving like right the way into the film, but when he goes under into the sunken place when he's being hypnotized, um, there's just like movements in his cheeks and his mouth that I don't think anybody does better. And I know that's a bold statement, but I do think he's one of them who I think he's about a similar age to us. I think he's in his early to mid 30s, and he's picking up bits in his career now. Sorry, yeah, most of us anyway.
early 30s for me, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pushing a little bit further. Yeah, and he's picking up bits, but this is like what you call it, where he was robbed, Judas and the Black Messiah, like absolutely, and get to it. But yeah, I think what he does better than anybody else, and it's so hard to put a finger on because it's so subtle. I also think his American accent is phenomenal. I know that's like a sort of byproduct of it, but at no point would you, if you didn't know who he was, at no point would you say he was English. And I think that works in his favour as well. But again, he has that level of sort of easiness about him. So when he's talking to Rod, his mate, and when he's talking to Rose, before all this shit kicks off, like he's a very natural actor as well. So it's not as if you're there going, oh, he's just doing a bit. He's there, sort of present in the moment, and it just, yeah, for me, it was the performance of the year, and I think it got looked. I think it was one of the performances of the year, and it got overlooked because of. I know it got nominated for Oscars and it won an Oscar, and I know we'll talk about that at some point. But like, I think he was massively overlooked in this because of, because it was horror. Maybe I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. Fair. Kaluuya or any other actors?
Yeah, I mean, like Daniel Kaluuya was outstanding, but I thought Alison Williams was the best part of this film. All the family, all her brother and her parents were all excellent, as was Daniel Kaluuya. But I thought she was incredible, especially like first time watching, not knowing the twists. And it's like the way that she portrays the genuine panic of not being able to find the keys. And then when he's like, give me the keys, and then she just like holds them up and is like, I can't give you these. And it's just that turn after the fact after that, and she's just it's genuinely like playing two completely different characters, and I think she absolutely nails it. I've not seen her in anything else subsequently because I've not seen that Megan or anything like that, but I thoroughly enjoyed her performance, and she was definitely a standout for me.
Absolutely. I think as well when one of the things that really kind of makes you like, oh my god, she's she's smashing this, is when she's on the phone to Rod, and she's like, her voice is saying one thing but her face is saying something completely different. Like basically her voice is one of panic and that, but then she's like so stoic in the face, and like that is creepy in itself. Like I genuinely gets like tingles down my spine when I even talk about it. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're as well. It's the whole family, as you say. what was her name? Catherine Keener as the mum. I thought she was extremely subtle as well with her performance, but again, so eerie, like with the whole use of the tea, the teacup and the clinking of that. Um, Again, this is something that I certainly noticed. I don't know if you guys had you'd probably noticed it before, but certainly on my first view, I did notice how much that sound is used of the clinking of the spoon against the tea.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just subtle things like that I thought were so good. And again, I found on the second viewing that I picked up more that were really interesting. What about you guys? Anything that you noticed potentially from, if you can remember, from your first viewing to now, or is it any little bits and pieces that kind of stand out for you?
Just on family performances, Bradley Whitford, the guy who plays the dad, at first, so talk. It kind of links into what you're asking as well. On first viewing, and when you first meet this family and you don't know what's quite wrong, if anything, he does just come across as an overly liberal, trying to be like cool dad. But when you look at it again, it's one of those people who doesn't know how to act around different races. Like it's as simple as that. And when you watch it back and you're like, oh, actually, it's not as like it's still funny, but like it's not as funny for Chris. It's not as like entertaining. The whole like, I think he said, is it Rose says he said my man 4 times since you've been here, and he's never used that before. Like it is funny when you first watch, and then afterwards you're just a bit like, oh, like this isn't right. It's not okay. But one of the ones that like really got me, I wrote it down, was my mother loved the kitchen. We keep a piece of her in here. I never clocked that. And on like a bit of a sort of a deeper watch, I suppose, because I was thinking like, right, is there any bits after you just how the sausage is made type thing. You shared the video of Jordan Peele looking at conspiracy theories and stuff, and what went on. So I was looking for things like that, and obviously the grandmother, who's now in the body of that woman, is in the kitchen, left a piece of her in here, which I thought was genius. Like, and right the way through, there's little bits and pieces. I don't know if you've noticed any more, but that was one that really stood out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that video. We could even pop it on Twitter as well. I thought that was quite interesting. As we've kind of spoke about this, obviously, like sort of off recording, but there were some things that Jordan Peele was just like, yeah, I what was it? It was one about the ukulele, wasn't it? When the brothers playing the ukulele on the porch, and someone was asking,
somebody was like, oh, they're playing back, but at like 8th speed or something like that, and that like links back to this and this and this, and he's like, no, I just asked him to play something on the ukulele.
Yeah, then there was the one about the black mold in the cellar, where we've got that locked up because there's some black mold in the cellar, and somebody was like, yeah, because like as in a mold that you pour stuff in, and it's a black person, and he was like, yeah, that's totally what I meant. Like, yeah, absolutely. But I think that's the best thing about this kind of like horror, and not just horror, but like this kind of film in general, where like you pick things up and you can interpret it how you want. I'm sure that person did back when he's playing that, and it's absolute nonsense. Yeah. The other big one that came from it, which I'd never ever really thought about, is when they get pulled over right at the beginning. Oh no, they don't get pulled over. Sorry, they hit the deer. The police come and she refuses. She's like, "No, don't show him your ID." We obviously all like think that it's part of because of who he is, because of his race. He's getting asked about it, when in actual fact it's to stop stop like a paper trail, stop figuring out who's where he's gone type thing. And I'd have never have seen that in a million years. I'd have never have thought about that. Just clever. It just the writing itself is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, because even that thing with the policeman is like, it's kind of the twist at the end when it's his pal Rod that's in the car, when you think the police are going to rock up and you're like, oh, they're in on it as well. Sort of thing is like, you don't know what's going to happen when the police car rocks up right at the end as well. I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah, it's just
at least
PSA, isn't it?
He'd be on her side.
Yeah.
What he says about TSA, we get things done, isn't it?
Yeah. And this situation is handled. Like, for me, I think like that level of comedy can be like a bit dodgy in films like this, and I think they pitched it absolutely perfectly. Like him talking about the next 9/11 is going to be some geriatric shit, and he's talking about like old people like doing like he was, and the best thing is he was right from the beginning. I know he was a little bit sort of extreme in his sex slaves and shit, and I'm sorry about the shit, but like he went a little bit far with it, but he was spot on from the very beginning, and I think that was brilliant that he was sort of justified in that. I thought that was.
It's kind of, it's one of those things that like he's obviously saying that as like a cliche kind of, you know, this is definitely, that's what's going to happen. It's a weird thing, a black guy going to his white girlfriend's family, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's what the film ends up doing, which is like quote unquote like obvious. But I never would have guessed that it's like a lobotomy and then the old white person goes into the black body. That was what that was the twist for me, as much as, oh, there's something wrong with this white family, because you kind of go in presuming that it's going to go down that road, but you just kind of guess that, oh yeah, he's just going to get killed or something, you know. Whereas the whole like implanting old relatives and stuff like that, so that was definitely an interesting twist. And it's the same. It's the bit where did Jordan Peele speak about it in that interview thing that he was doing or not? But it's that they're talking about how the grandpa was always jealous that he couldn't run as much, so then they got like a massive fit guy, and that's who he got put into, because physically the granddad was never able to compete back in the day, kind of thing.
Yeah, because it was the granddad that got beat by Jesse Owens, wasn't it? At the 38
that's right.
Olympics.
That's right.
Yeah. And then obviously, the dad's trying to play it off as like, oh, but it's a good thing that Jesse Owens won and gave it up to Hitler or whatever he says. And yeah, it's I think that's kind of again, little bits and pieces, because as you say, it was the granddad was wanting to run again, but then the next time we see him or see the guy that he's in is when he's running straight up to Chris's like face outside when he's going for a cigarette, and I think it's like things like that where it's like it's almost jump scares, but it's not, but they're done so effectively, and again they're kind of lined up by the subtext and stuff that we've already had that we don't really know, or we're not potentially put two and two together until later on, and it's like, well, that's why he was doing that.
I think it's it's because you're anticipating something as well. So like when you see him, because he comes from the bottom end of the garden and you see him sprinting, you're anticipating him to like take him out, or like you're ready for something, and when he turns that corner, you're like, you don't know what to expect. It kind of takes everything that you know about horror and just goes, this isn't what we're doing. For me, that's where I hate the phrase elevated horror. I just need to say that now. It's a phrase that a lot of people use. I think it needs to be balled up and stuck up somebody's ass, because it's horrendous. And essentially what people are saying is that there's like this kind of horror that Jordan Peele's making, etc. And then there's like I said, Lights Out and Don't Breathe and all that kind of thing. And they're two different types. That this is more elevated than the other, and I despise it. I hate it. I think horror's horror.
I would actually agree with the fact that there's different like levels of it.
There's Shudder originals and there's Get Out.
Well, no, not Shudder originals. But I definitely think there's different levels of horror in terms of like.
But I just think
cheap horror to more like intellectually.
I just think to use the phrase elevated horror, like I think it's almost like gatekeepy, as in like it's better than, and I don't think it necessarily. I do think there's different levels. I do think there's different ways, and I get pissed off with like the jump scares and stuff. Like not as in like pissed off because I'm scared, like as in we all know my feelings on the. Well, yeah, me too. Yeah, in the film Smile. Yeah,
a big boy.
Yeah, like how I felt about Smile. Like there was jump scares in that. They were all shit. Like that's bargain basement horror. That But yeah, I think to call it elevated horror, it really annoys me. Sorry, I've dug my own hole. But yeah, I just think to take what you know about horror and like not have those jump scares and like say it stops you expecting. It stops you knowing what to expect. Sorry, you're just up in the air now. You don't know what's going to happen, and I think that was a massive moment in the film.
Mhm.
Sorry, Indra.
No, that's absolutely fine. And I think as well, one of the things that, again, on the second viewing certainly stuck out to me was the actual performances of the actors that are like the granddad and the grandma. Like when he meets the granddad when he's chopping the wood, and he like acts like an old white person. And it's so easy to forget that it's like it's a black actor like this that's doing this. Just like his mannerisms, his little smarmy smile, the way that he kind of talks to him as well, and the language that he uses, and even is it Lakeith Stanfield? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah,
that's right.
When he's at the party as well, and Chris goes to give him like a fist bump, and he like grabs his hand.
He holds it.
Yeah, like little things like that are like obviously it's acting, of course, but it's so well done. Little things like that. I mean, was that something that you guys maybe picked up on early on in viewings? Obviously, after the first one, you probably would have seen it and stuff. But what were your thoughts on those sorts of performances? I know we've heard from Todd quite a lot. So, Collie, what about you?
The language was definitely something that jumped out at me as being quite bizarre. But then I wasn't sure if that was just them being ingratiated in the way that that family spoke and stuff. Because even I would say Rose's family speak a bit oldie timey to each other or whatever, and that's why it's so funny when the dad's saying "my man" and all that, like because it just seems to be completely different, and kind of strange. But Lakeith Stanfield, even though he's only in it briefly, and I like his stare that he does is kind of it's not being memed, but it's quite a well used GIF in that now, I would say. So that's kind of where that scene always brings me and thinks of the GIF rather than the scene. But I think he does really, really well. And obviously it's funny. It's the bit from Family Guy when he's at the cinema and then they say the name of the title and Peter's like, they said it. So like when he's screaming "Get Out" the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, it's a bit like cheap or whatever because that's him just obviously saying the name of the film or that. But then when you know why he's saying it and stuff, it brings a bit more depth to it. So it's not as when what is it? Peter goes to see like Superman 3, and then there's like the whole title after it. He's like, yeah, and this is now Superman, and then he's like, they said it again, kind of thing. Yeah, so it's not quite like that. But I thought his short, like small role, I wouldn't say cameo, but like small role, I thought he was really, really good, and he was kind of, I guess, well, I was gonna say he's like the main black character that's been taken over by a white person, but both the performances by the housemaid and the gardener as well were excellent. It definitely got me the first time when Daniel Kaluuya goes and gets the housemaid and puts her in the car. It's one of those moments watching a film going, no, just leave her.
Yeah.
Why are you picking her up? And then she's like, obviously she's in the passenger seat and you just see her like turn around and attack him. And what did you say? Like, you've destroyed my house or whatever. Yeah. And then they crash and stuff. Yeah, it's both, all performances by the black actors, especially playing a white character. If that makes sense, they're really, really good. I was really impressed by it.
Yep, absolutely. It was funny as well seeing Caleb Landry Jones as the brother, because obviously last time we saw him was in 3 Billboards. As Red, the sort of like the guy. So seeing him a bit more sinister this time, I thought was quite a nice little change. And obviously being obsessed with jiu-jitsu, which I appreciate as an MMA fan as well. So yeah, I thought he was actually he's quite good.
Sorry, just on that front, was it in the Jordan Peele? I keep referring to that interview. Obviously, was it in that he was talking about how they referred to that earlier, and then when they fight. Mm-hmm. That's how Kaluuya wins almost.
Yeah, because it was
because what is it? It's jiu-jitsu against
judo, and it's being
judo,
like 3 steps ahead is jiu-jitsu, and then when he's kicking the door closed, Chris then realizes that he's going to kick it again, so he opens the door again and stabs him when he goes to kick
That's
it.
Right. Yeah. That's right. I thought that like that mentioning of it way earlier in the film is you just think he's trying to be aggro with him in terms of like flexing, like, oh, I know MMA or I know like a mixed martial art or whatever, and then it comes back because that like not well, kind of a jump scare is that when you think he's obviously killed him by bashing his head in, and you're like, right, he's killed a mum just before that. He's away to go out, and then obviously he gets attacked by by the brother again. I thought that was kind of a good, like, minor twist, I guess you could say.
Definitely. And I think as well, this is where the writing of it kind of comes into its own, because of the little like nods earlier on sort of come full circle, don't they? And again, it's Jordan Peele knowing exactly what he wants and making sure that it's like it's clear that this is kind of where things are going. So kind of moving on to like the filmmaking then. One of the big things for me that, again, on second watch, certainly that jumped out was the use of the sunken place, and how when Kaluuya is dragged into it, you're still seeing like the almost like TV, and he's being able to see what's happening outside. I thought that was such a effective way to show it, in that he's still there, and he can still see what's happening, but he has no control over it. And again, it adds to kind of the other people who have been in this situation. They're obviously still, their conscience is still kind of there, but unable to kind of do anything about it. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was so well done and well shot. The sequences in the sunken place.
And I think going into it as well, that whole sort of the backwards and forwards between Catherine Keener's character and Chris, and going between them, and like I said, that single tear is like, I think it's one of those iconic images now. The kind of last, but yeah, to be fair, I don't know how I've missed it. It isn't until this watch, because I've watched this obviously a few times now, but on the first watch, I didn't clock that they stayed in the body. I thought the sunken place was somewhere that their mind went to, and that's sort of all they had, So I think that was because it's a throwaway line by Stephen Root, isn't it? Like, it's literally like a single line where you'll still see everything that we see, but you just won't have any control type thing. So I think that made the sunken place that bit more effective. And I think the flashbacks as well to Chris being sat as a kid waiting for his mum in the rain and stuff, and the use of the rain sound. Like, I took, obviously we're in the UK, all of us, and it's hoying it down constantly. I had to mute the telly because the sound design, I know we talk about how it's filmed, but it all ties in. The sound design was that effective with the rain. I wasn't sure whether it was on the telly or not, because it wasn't like a big crashing sort of like thunderous rain or whatever. It was just subtle because it's in his subconscious type thing. But yeah, I think the transition between the sunken place and the flashbacks, because they use similar colours, because they use that sort of ethereal is the only word I can use to describe it, where it's filmed from so far back, you feel like you're looking in on it from such a distance. So yeah, I thought it was really effective.
Colleague, thoughts?
Just the filmmaking in general, I thought the kind of one bit that stood out for me, and it's probably one of the more well-known scenes, is when Daniel Kaluuya is sitting in the chair when the mum's talking to him, and it's just like a long shot of his face. There's a few cuts and stuff, but that scene was when Daniel Kaluuya auditioned for the role. He did it like 4 or 5 times, and Jordan Peele said he nailed it every single time, and just got when he's talking about his mother, and he got like the single tear going down. He just said that Daniel Kaluuya could do like that on command.
Wow.
So I think, and again, what you're saying about Rose when she's on the phone about her face, I think just the directing of Jordan Peele for like folks' facial expressions, again going back to Andre, Lakeith Stanfield as well. It's long takes, and it's especially the Andre one. It's like he's there, but he's not there. I think obviously acting is a major part in that, but I think direction as well, as to kind of, he's obviously communicated to them the kind of motivations for why they're looking the way they're looking, or what he wants from them and stuff. So I think as a character director, Jordan Peele definitely stands out, and we'll obviously talk about that as we go to the other films as well.
Yep, absolutely. One little thing as well, again going back to the sort of like the writing and the little nods and stuff, is when Kaluuya is in the chair and he's like only able to use his hands, and he's like scraping against the the sort of armrests, and you see the little bits of like the innards, the I don't know what it is, like
Stuffing.
stuffing. There we go. Yeah, the little bit of stuffing like coming up, and then obviously that is kind of full circle when he uses it to plug his ears.
Yeah.
When he's able to kind of just before he's able to get out. Again, I thought another little touch that is.
Said it.
What did I say?
Said get out.
Did I actually? I didn't
Yeah.
even notice. Oh God, sorry, Peter Griffin. Yeah. So that was that. Okay. Was there anything else you guys wanted to discuss about that, or do you think we kind of covered all the bits and pieces? Were any able to move on to the next one, or what do you think?
I think for me anyway, we've danced like from like subject to subject that I wanted to discuss and say what I liked about the film. So no, I'm done.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I'm done.
Done.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, doke. So we will move on to the next film in the Jordan Peele verse, and it is Us, a film that was released in 2019. And the plot for that is a family's serene beach vacation turns to chaos when their doppelgangers appear and begin to terrorize them. Again, this so like each of his movies I've seen once before, so this is a rewatch for myself. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. This first of all go to Todd. What are your first thoughts on the film Us?
Yeah, so this was different to Get Out in terms of I think it took a little bit more, like a couple of watches to warm up to it as much. I loved it on the first watch, but like I say, more and more, the more I watch it, I've completely fallen in love with it. I think it's another film that takes what we expect and just absolutely goes the other way, because they could have done this sort of drawn out. It's 5 versus 5, and that's it. It's the family is a double for some reason. But I thought the way that he took it in terms of we're Americans really sort of sat with me. I don't know what it was, but I think performances wise, they have a lot more to play with in this film, the actors. But I thought performances wise and thematically, it's just outstanding. And like I said, I don't want to start going into performances and stuff now because I know we'll talk about them, and I know there's a lot to talk about. So I won't go into. But yeah, fantastic.
Collie?
Yeah, again, so similar to Get Out. Didn't see it at the cinema. Seen it when I was able to watch it at home. Wanted to watch it because I enjoyed Get Out. And again, similar to Get Out, I really, really enjoyed it. Horror not being my kind of thing. This is a kind of a different take on horror. Some would say elevated. Others wouldn't. No.
Some nodded. Yeah.
But yeah, on a surface level, I think it's very, very good. And then when you kind of get more into the connotations as to the story that's being told, or that Jordan Peele's trying to tell through subtext and stuff, it just becomes a little bit more. But yeah, top to bottom, like performance wise, was great. I thought, again we'll get into it and that, but I thought like some of the action sequences were really, really well filmed because you didn't really get too much of that in Get Out. It was more a slow burn. But yeah, overall, again, really, really like this film.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a different. It's different but the same to Get Out kind of thing. There's like similar sort of like themes or as you say, like subtext and things, but it's a different kind of film in sort of where it goes and how kind of far it goes with some things as well. So yeah, I definitely, again, personally, I definitely think that Get Out is the better of the two anyway. But yeah, absolutely, it's still a really interesting sort of different kind of a different kind of film, which I really appreciate. That's one of the things I appreciate Jordan Peele doing is kind of thinking outside the box and not going with a formulaic sort of like horror or like a something that's going to break the box office sort of thing. He does stuff for him or like things that he wants to do, which I really rate. So yeah, thinking about then the performances, obviously it's fronted by Lupita Nyong'o, who is a phenomenal actress in my eyes. She, as you said, Todd, there's a lot of stuff that they all have to work with, but obviously she's the leading actress. what were your thoughts on her performance and what she kind of did with things? Collie, Todd, anyone?
Collie, go ahead.
So I thought you'd light in Todd there. That's why I didn't say anything.
Oh.
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o was absolutely class in this, especially like all the main family. They've got to come and perform two different characters completely. So when she was playing Adelaide's the real character and Red's the doppelganger.
Yeah.
Tethered, yes. Although there's questions about that we can touch on when we just talk more about the end of the film. But yeah, I thought the fact that she had to play these like parallel characters was really, really well done. I thought Winston Duke stood out to me as really, really good as well, because he's obviously he's a massive dude, like a massive physical presence on screen, but his normal character is kind of a bit sheepish at times, and when the Tethered family turns up, he's a bit like, oh, like go away, like leave us alone kind of thing, and then he's obviously having to play the Tethered as well, who's just physically overpowering and all that kind of stuff. So I thought both of them, both the two main leads were really good. But I thought Elizabeth Moss, in as little that she was in it, an actress that I really, really enjoy. I thought she was great as Adelaide's best mate, especially like just some of the conversations that they were having on the beach were quite comical and a bit daft and stuff. But I thought she was really, really good as well.
Todd?
Yeah, like I say, Winston Duke is brilliant because especially when he sees the Tethered family on the drive, and he goes from being a relatively sensible person to, if you want to get crazy, we can get crazy, and he tries to put that little bit of attitude on. So yeah, I thought he was brilliant. I thought the kids did a cracking job as well. It's a believable family. But for me, Lupita Nyong'o, I feel like she's not in this film. She was amazing. I feel like as an actress, she's underutilized. Like, she blew up with it was 12 Years a Slave she was in, and that was like her entrance onto the scene. She was going to be this Oscar-winning actress, and I just don't feel like I think this is her best performance for me. And again, I know some people, in particular, like the Academy and stuff, don't look at it in the same way because of the genre and because of. But I just think who else could have pulled it off in the way she does? Not just the tethered version of her is wild. Like there's no way of putting your finger directly on every single thing that she does, because she twists a fit. There's a smile that she does that. I know my acting talents from the last episode. If you haven't seen them, go and watch it. Can show so much, but there is this smile that she does that almost doesn't look real. Like it's not even a case of
you gotta try
it.
Absolutely not.
You got
try it. You know you're gonna.
I
Todd,
absolutely can't.
Come on, Todd.
But where it looks like
For the people, Todd.
Come on, Todd. Come on.
The people can go away. They created the phrase elevated horror. I'm coming back to that. Yeah, it looks like a smile's been cut into a face. You can shake your heads all you want. I did it last week.
Just do
I
it.
still haven't got. I still haven't got the plaudits that I deserve.
For the content, come on, for the content.
I genuinely couldn't do it. I genuinely.
You can try though.
For the content, we piss for the content. I'm going to bring myself back around to the voice as well, which I also can't do.
Do an impression of the voice,
yeah,
then.
Absolutely not.
Fuck's sake, man! Like,
what am I here for? Is this what I'm here for? Is this just,
I don't know? Like, your question as the third host on this is
right. Well, if this is my last episode, I'm going out.
Going out like a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to get crazy.
Yeah. No. The voice that she does for the Tethered is haunting. Absolutely haunting. Sit there and shake your head. Massey, what did you think about the performance? Any others that you can think of?
Yeah, it was funny seeing Winston Duke and not hearing him go, "Ibombe." That was the big takeaway I got from that. Because of Black Panther, he's in that and he does that. That's the only reason I'm saying that. But yeah, it was so funny seeing Tim Heidecker as well, because he is just a comic actor in Eric and Tim. And yeah, it's funny, Collie said about Elizabeth Moss, but him and their relationship was hilarious, especially when, spoiler, when they're just away to be killed, sort of thing. Their kind of discussion about about what there's a noise outside and how he's not going to see it, and he like and then turns on like the music and stuff. Like it's just such a like it's such a antagonistic relationship between both of them, which I think is really funny. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lupita Nyong'o for me was outstanding. Even like you were talking about her sort of facial movements, but like her physical movements. So like the sort of like last, I'm kind of jumping to the end of the movie here, but the last sort of scene when it's her against her, and it's the sort of like the dance, the sort of dancing underneath, and she's attacking herself with the sort of fire poker and stuff. Like just her creepy like cha-cha slides like that she does to get past the swinging of the fire poker and stuff is it's so uneasy the way that she does it. And obviously we've spoken about like her voice and her face and things, and Todd didn't do the face and the voice, of course, but we spoke about those, and like it's just an unbelievable performance. And not for 1 minute did I think, oh, they're using a green screen or they're doing some camera trickery to have these two exact same people side by side interacting with each other. It was just so incredibly well done. Yeah, as you said, Todd, about the kids as well, like the daughter, as a tethered, she was like I was scared of her.
Mm-hmm.
She had this like sort of like almost sunken face. It would almost it was obviously the same actress, but it almost felt like it was a completely different actress. And for someone that that age to do something like that and come across it, that I thought was incredibly well done. In terms of sort of subtext, let's kind of dive into a bit of that. So obviously with Get Out, there was bits and pieces that happened that kind of led on to moments later on in the film. I think there's still quite a lot that I missed, certainly on second viewing. So was there anything that you guys sort of like could sort of say for sure was meaning this, or like something was a subtext for that? Because as I say, I kind of found that there were some things that I was like, is he trying to say something with that? I don't quite get it. But I don't know what's your thoughts on this?
The big one for me was the that I've got 5 on it and using that song. And again, this isn't something that I know about, and it's not like I've read it, and I read it quite soon after coming out of the film, just because, like I say, I had theories about like what was it trying to say, especially because of that line, "We're Americans." Like, so I was like, right, so what's it trying to say about the American experience? What's it trying to say about people living in America or whatever? But so I was looking online, and the I've got 5 on it is about going halves essentially on a bag of weed. I might be wrong. So somebody could correct me if they know different. But like, as far as I'm aware, it means that 2 of you are going halves on the same thing, which just plays into it really nicely. That there's two versions. So that was the big one for me. But like in terms of subtext, in terms of like foreshadowing and stuff, I didn't think there was as much on even sort of second viewing type thing. I mean, I don't know again how many times I've watched this film. And you'd said about the Jeremiah 11:11 thing in the in the group chat and stuff. I'd not even like, obviously I'd seen that sign and I was like, oh, that's your man from the beginning. Like, that's your man from when she was a child. Like, that's all I thought about that. I didn't think, it didn't clock, and then all of a sudden these references are coming through the whole time. And again, it's something I've looked into about what Jeremiah 11:11 the verse is, but it's still not something I can put my finger on what it means. I don't know if either of you two did, or if you've got anything else, but like, it just kind of it felt obscure. Sorry.
Yeah, all I knew about 11:11 was like apparently it's like a lucky time. So like if you like focus on like I sent a picture in the group chat because my clock had went to 11:11. That's why we're referencing that. But I was always under the impression that it was like a time or something. If you notice it, then you obviously I'm not.
If you make a wish at 11:11.
Is that what it is? Right. Okay.
All right.
Because that was all I knew about it. But then obviously it wasn't lucky for these guys.
Mhm.
Because obviously there's little references to it, like even because the kid points out the times 11:11, and yeah, again, I didn't quite get what that actually meant, but I just knew that it like was building up to something.
In the context of other films, and I know I'm jumping ahead, sorry, but in Nope, when he says about what's a bad miracle, or like have you ever experienced that? He used the phrase bad miracle, and I see it as like a coincidence type thing, and I think coincidences play a lot in what he does, especially us and Nope. There's like a lot of parallels there. So like when the frisbee lands perfectly on the circle of the rug,
Yeah.
the blanket, sorry, on the beach. And I think maybe it is a case of like bad omens type thing, and that just creating that feeling. And I think that's what he does really well. That's one thing I can say for certain, is that he creates this atmosphere of a family going to Santa Cruz. There's the dad, like Winston Duke, having the best time of talking about his boat and stuff. And like one thing that's different about this. Sorry to go off on one. But one thing that's different about Jordan Peele's horror films in general is they feel like an actual slice of life drama. When you go into traditional horror, old school horror, whatever, you
Less elevated, yeah.
shut up. I wish I'd never said anything now. Fuck's sake. Yeah, when you go into those horrors, you're going into, there's a haunted house type thing. This is a family who are on a holiday, who are enjoying themselves. It takes it away from that. It feels like a drama where stuff just goes incredibly wrong. But yeah, sorry to go back to the subtext. That was where, I don't know if you noticed anything, Collie, or if there's anything else you want to add to it. But
So even like without reading up on it, I didn't look up like what Jeremiah 11:11 meant after the first watching. I just kind of on a base level seen that 11:11 is mirrored. Therefore, that's kind of what's happening in the film, is that they're mirrored. It's the same thing on either side of the
Mhm.
two dots, the colon, and on a clock or whatever. So that was kind of a thing that I'm not being like, I clocked it straight away, but I immediately was like, that's a mirrored image. And I kind of referred, like when I realized what the film was about, which is that there's a doppelganger version of yourself, etc. I was like, I wonder if that's it. Like there's nothing deeper than 11:11 just like looks the same on
Mhm.
either side. And then I did a little bit of digging into it, and Peele had said there's a double meaning to everything. This movie's about duality, the type of duality that's represented visually with the mirrored image of 11:11. So
Oh, right.
there's a reason that he chose that because it looks the same. But then I had there was a Esquire article of all things that I was reading about what does us actually mean, and then there's this part from, does it say the King James Bible? The verse reads, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape, and though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them." So then through this Esquire, they're referring to some Reddit comments and stuff, and somebody has surmised from that paragraph from Jeremiah 11:11 is the evil are the tethered who are coming for mankind, unable to escape, or the evil is the pointless suffering the tethered have to endure for the sake of humanity. So it's kind of saying that like they're trapped almost, which is obviously kind of a baseline understanding, is that the tethered, I mean, even the word tethered means to be tied to or whatever. So there's and again, similar to both of you, there's obviously stuff that I couldn't even comprehend, even to reading explanations and stuff. But as a base kind of subtext, 11:11 clock to me just is this not mirror dimension kind of thing to go that kind of way, but like there's a side to every story or whatever.
Mhm.
There's the one that's been punished and had to suffer, and then there's the one that's been able to live this fruitful life. And what one's Adelaide and what one's Red is a very big question by the end of the film. That there's probably theories out there like Inception. Does the spinning top fall over at the end of Inception? Is Adelaide at the end, or is it Red? And who actually kills the other one? I don't know if you guys have got any thoughts or theories on that.
I don't know. Like for me, it felt like, or this is again how I interpreted it, is that it is Adelaide, but she's obviously, because she is originally tethered, she has that kind of like, not evil, but like she has that kind of darkness sort of inside her. That's kind of that's what I took from it anyway, is that it is Adelaide, but she's like, she's technically red, but she's Adelaide. If that I don't know if that makes sense. Like, but it was such an interesting sort of take on things there. Todd, thoughts on the ending? Because obviously she does this little smile thing to the boy, and he kind of
he pulls the mask down.
Yeah.
It's like he's protect. I think it's Adelaide. In the end, I think it makes sense in terms of the story, but I think, like you say, that now that the son's seen everything go on, he's seen what's happened. He gets that feeling from her because he through the film he's built on like gut feeling. He's the gut feeling character. I know he doesn't like say it, but you can see it. He's the one who's scared. He's the one who's questioning everything, and I think, yeah, I do think Adelaide is the person who's alive at the end, but I think because she, like you say, she is technically the tethered one, and brought all this upon the Earth, well, America, I suppose. Yeah, I think it's her, but I didn't read anything further into that than it was just a case of he knew what had happened. Collie, I don't know if you have any theories or any ideas.
Yeah, so it is the kind of overlying theory, just to understand it, is that they swap places at the beginning of the film when they meet in the mirror room, and then it's actually tethered one that lives the life of Adelaide, and it's the untethered one that lives the life of Red. Is that the theory? And then at the end, the untethered one dies, and it's the tethered one, but that is Adelaide that lives at the end. Is that what we're saying?
So the original tethered person is still alive at the end.
Yeah.
That's the person who's been Adelaide the whole way through.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And not the one that does the voice. Like, what's the voice again, Todd?
I don't know. I've not seen the film. Is it any good? I'm just reading off Wikipedia.
Another bit of like subtext. Is it that again? Is this like as an American kind of thing? Is, and this was again like a Reddit theory that I looked at was that it's always like, I guess this isn't just an American thing. I guess it's a human fear, but it's like fear of the unknown. It's fear of other people that are like from different cultures and stuff. And the fact that they were like completely mirrored was that, they're all like mothers, brothers, fathers, sisters, sons, daughters, all that kind of stuff. But it's just like a different outlook on life. So like the tethered. So we'll just use as example like America, and then we'll say Mexico, because that's obviously like right at the border below. It's like there's an American family, there's a Mexican family, and they've got the same family dynamic, have the same experiences, but they're both like unsure and they don't know what the American experience is like and what the Mexican experience is like, and it's the fear of the unknown that kind of fuels this kind of fear and like a bit scared about it and stuff, even though everyone's the same deep down. Is kind of, that's the message that person was trying to put forth. I was like, yeah, I get that, but then also the tethered stab people, so
yeah, that's a good I
thought that was another kind of attempt at kind of going with the duality side of things. So yeah, that was just another like, a theory, I guess you could say, a theory. Or attempt at understanding it.
That's definitely an interesting way of thought. Like I never even thought of it like that, to be honest. That's actually really.
It was one of those ones when I read it, I was like, I can see where they're coming from. And again, it was probably like one of those ones. If there's a Peele interview like Get Out, he's probably just like, yeah, it's nothing like that. But you can at least kind of understand where the person was coming from with their theory. I don't think they were plucking out of like thin air and just making it up. I think I could definitely see. That could have been what was trying to be explored in the film as well.
It's funny because like the actual the sort of like ins and outs of it in terms of how the tethered work, I feel like you kind of have to be, you almost have to think about it or not think about it as too much. But then there's obviously the subtext that makes you think about it obviously a bit more. Like,
well, yeah, that's the thing. The same as Get Out. You can enjoy the film as like a straight up just horror film of black guy goes to white girl's family and bad stuff happens. Yeah. And it's the same as this. It's like, there's a mirror kind of realm or whatever that these people are trapped in. They're wanting to kill their counterparts and take over, take over the world, and that's it. And then there's stuff that you can delve into like further down the line.
Yeah,
and that's like I know we've been memeing about it a little bit, but that's where like I would say elevated. Elevated is a bit of a gatekeeping like term, but I can understand what they mean by that in terms of there's a bit more to it than a horror film. Like horror films with jump scares and that might be fine, but it's one of those ones that you just watch on a surface level and it's scary and it's creepy and that's it. Whereas this is asking like questions and all that kind of stuff. So I get the elevated thing does seem a bit like actually kind of about it, but I cannot. That's where I was disagreeing with you to an extent, Todd, that there definitely is different levels of filmmaking.
I'm with you, and like I say, I think you enjoy those films, or certainly like in terms of horror. Like I enjoy both types of horror, but like I it's the phrase that gets me. It's the
no, I totally agree. Like me aside, I do agree with it.
Yeah,
I agree with you that I don't like the term, but I also agree that the term means something as well. Yeah.
And just quickly, how would it sound if Red was trying to say elevated horror, Todd?
Shut up. Even I'm just like giving up. It's Todd's last ever episode because he didn't do the voice.
So let me have me fun.
So there was a bit of I just closed the tab. There was a bit of trivia on. There was 2 bits of trivia that I found interesting. She based the voice on Robert F. Kennedy and specifically the spasmodic dysphonia he suffered from. Which I don't exactly know what that means, but she based it on Robert F. Kennedy. I didn't realize he had a speech thing, but again, not being American, I don't particularly know how he speaks.
Maybe he's tethered.
Perhaps. But there was also one other bit of trivia, and I had to Google who the character was because I didn't really understand it. But Duke Nicholson is an actor that was in this film. His characters were Danny and Tony. It's something about the ride at the pier. I don't know if he runs the mirror. Like the room of mirrors or hall of mirrors or whatever it is. But Jordan Peele told him to play the part like Lloyd the bartender from The Shining. Oh. And Jordan Peele didn't realise that Duke Nicholson is actually Jack Nicholson's grandson. So I thought that was a cool bit of trivia. He's obviously just a bit part actor in it because I had to Google who the character even was. So it was Danny and Tony. But I just thought that was funny that he referenced Lloyd. Because one day we'll talk about Kubrick, but Lloyd the bartender's got like his kind of chill speaking away to Jack in The Shining, and then he like completely changes and says a naughty word, and all that kind of stuff in The Shining. So there's definitely like a kind of schizophrenic kind of aspect to Lloyd, and it was interesting that he was asking this young actor to portray him like that, and it turns out that his granddad was the main character in that film that he was referencing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Was it anything to do with actual, the filmmaking in this one? Again, I've kind of touched on the fact that I thought it was really well done that you didn't ever think it was like a green screen or anything in terms of the family. I thought they did that really, really well. But what about the rest of the film then? Was there anything else that you thought was kind of well done at all?
There were some shots in this, like when the wee lad's just like there's a family in the driveway, and then it cuts to it, and it's just all 4 of them standing at the end of the drive. You can kind of make out that they're in like red boiler suit kind of things, but they're just completely in shadow. I thought that was a really awesome, like just iconic shot that stuck with me after seeing the film, and then also just the violence in it. I thought was really, really I thought it was well shot in terms of it. It felt real and it looked real. It wasn't. There's nothing that was too like over the top. And even when Elizabeth Moss and her family get married, you're inside the house with them. They're all talking and stuff, and then you see some of the tethers start appearing, and then it pulls back to like outside the house, and they're looking it's outside the house, and you're watching the murders happen, but you're not like there, if that makes sense. You're kind of disconnected from it somewhat. So just some like creative choices like that I thought were really, really cool. And kind of watching the film, especially on rewatches, you're like, oh, that was pretty cool. Like a lot of directors, like through no like criticism or that, but they would have just filmed the scene as it was inside the house, whereas Peele decides to kind of disconnect you a little bit from it and bring you back out of it. I thought that was an interesting sequence as well. But nothing else that I really want to talk about that springs to mind. I don't know, Todd, if you want to say anything else.
I
In
think
the voice.
the whole thing. I think the whole Get Out was essentially a one location film. I know obviously you had shots in his apartment and when you spoke to Rod and stuff, but like this is a sort of bit more stretched. There's a lot of different locations, and I just think the way he handled that was really well done. It wasn't sort of sweeping vistas, and aside from the very end, which was the biggest sweeping vista you can get filming most of North America, but yeah, I think like the shot where the tethered kid, the lad, he's going to set fire to the car, and it's a trap and stuff. And when he starts walking backwards, that was like something out of like almost like a 90s horror film, 90s action film. Sorry, that's what I got. That sort of big Michael Bay style like flames in the background and stuff. But I do think he took the violence a little bit more subtly. He could have gone full blood and guts with it and turned some people off. And there's enough violence to sort of satiate the people who come to horror for that. There's enough, you know what I mean? There's plenty of people getting whacked around the back of the head with various different items, and Lupita Nyong'o hitting one of the twins with that frying pan. But and again, there's that level of sort of comedy, which it's less. He seems to have less and less comedy as he goes, and I think he's sort of working that out a little bit here. But obviously, with Tim Heidecker, you're going to have some level of comedy. I thought the music as well. Like I know we talk about filmmaking, but I thought the music. I thought "Fuck the Police" was
That was
like
a good choice.
really good.
Brilliant.
Like it broke it down as well, because then you're back in like this sort of like you're giggling your back off at the "Fuck the Police" absolutely blaring while these people are getting murdered. But the remix and the dance I thought was spectacular. The remix of it's called the Tethered remix. If I've got 5 on it. Yeah, it's on Spotify.
So I heard actually, I don't know if you saw this, but I seen that that wasn't originally going to be in the film, but then the trailer came out with that as the music, and Jordan Peele obviously saw the positive reaction to it, and then added it into the film as that afterwards. Yeah. But I think you're right. I think that sound that like again, it's a duality, isn't it? Because they're listening to us in the car, and then when it's like the dance scene with like the darker sort of version of it, and it's a banger. Like it's an absolute banger. And even the final song over the sweeping vista as well. Was this? I think it was like the song that maybe was like the Hands Across America, or it was like similar sort of like thing, wasn't it? And it kind of adds to that as well. But yeah, I completely agree with the music, definitely.
When you're saying about the duality as well, it's like it's almost it is. It's classical music. It's the stringed instruments with hip hop. It's two things that you wouldn't normally sort of put together. I thought that was a really interesting. But I just thought the way, like you say, the cha-cha slide of it, which you've ruined it now because I'm not going to be able to watch it properly without going to the left.
Just crawls.
But it's like because it's so mechanical, or that's the only way I can describe that sort of that dance and that fight. It's Futurama where he says perfectly symmetrical fighting is going to get us nowhere, and like it's the same. Their moves, what's going to be happening. Their move, do you know what I mean? Like and I thought that was spliced with the moments of her dancing as a kid, and that sort of this is what you could have won, like this is what you could have had type thing. Do you know what I mean? That one had, one hadn't. I thought that was just a brilliant. If that had finished there, if the film had have ended there with who we think is Adelaide killing Red, and it just ended, I'd have been I love the ending, but I'd have been fine with that as an ending as well. It was so climactic without being too over the top and too big. So yeah, it was fantastic.
Okay, doke. Well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about with us, or shall I move on to the next film?
No, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, good.
Okay, we will get the voice from you, Todd, at one point, so don't worry. Okay, so the final film we're talking about in the Jordan Peele verse is Nope, a 2022 film. And the plot for this is the residents of a lonely gulch in inland California bear witness to an uncanny and chilling discovery. As you can tell, obviously, I wrote that myself because I don't even know what gulch means. But yes, Nope. Again, first thoughts on this film. We'll go Collie first.
So I did go to the cinema to see this, and I've subsequently watched it a couple of times. I don't know if it's that I don't get it, but I don't. I would say I like this film in terms of it's a good looking film. I like some of the character performances and that, but for me, it's definitely a step down compared to the first two. And I don't know if that's just because it's so different, and I fully respect him like experimenting with more science fiction type stuff. But yeah, this film's okay. I do like it, but I thought it was okay.
Cool. Todd, thoughts on this film?
So again, like us, I came out of this more lukewarm. I went to see it at the cinema because I was, I think I was there opening day, maybe the day after. I came out of it lukewarm, and it's only on sort of. I don't know how many rewatches I've done of it. I've watched it a lot since, and yeah, I love it for different reasons because I think I went in expecting a horror, and I got something very, very different. That at first I felt like there was a lot more subtext to this that I was going to have to do some reading on, and the more that I've watched it, the less I think that. The ideas that are at play when you think about how he's written these previous films, I think there's a lot less subtext than what meets the eye, maybe. But yeah, I love it. Not as an alien invasion film, not as a horror film, but more as a man versus nature film. And it went from a sort of 3 to a 5-star over the space of a year for me. Look, I love this film as well.
Fair.
Yeah,
I'm kind of more leaning towards yourself, Collie. It's a film that I think looks phenomenal. It's probably the best looking film of his, I would say. But in terms of the actual story, it's definitely the weakest one. I wouldn't say by far. I'd definitely say it's definitely the weakest one. There's a lot to like about it, but there's also a lot that I felt maybe wasn't quite there in terms of the other two. Some would say Jordan Peele is a charlatan after this one, but I would disagree.
What?
I would disagree. Or he's
Who said
overrated.
that?
So I'm just saying some would. I'm not saying I don't know who, but some probably would.
we'd like to hear from these people.
Yeah, name them.
Todd, he said that.
I don't think Todd of all people didn't say that.
The tethered Todd said that.
Okay, yeah,
Go and
fair
just
enough.
let us know what that would sound like, Todd, if you were to say that as tethered.
We're gonna get hashtag do the voice Todd trending after this.
But it's funny you say there, Todd, that you don't think there's much subtext into it. I think there's a load of subtext in this. But it's stuff that like I definitely didn't get on the first go round. Like I remember, and sorry, this is me kind of going about a tangent. I think it was Logan Paul did a tweet about this film, where he was like, "I hated it, I don't get it, blah blah." And there was a load in like the threads after that kind of explained it a bit more, and like how it like sort of again goes into kind of we'll go into it a bit more. But yeah, I felt there was actually a lot more subtext, knowing that there should be subtext. I think. Than just on the surface, but we'll get into it in a bit more detail. So, first of all, shall we talk about again the performance or the central performances of sort of the main two? I would say certainly this in the film is Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer. So obviously Jordan Peele has worked with Kaluuya in Get Out that we spoke about. But what about his performance in this one? Was there anything that you thought stood out, or anything that maybe didn't quite work? We'll go with Collie first. What was your thoughts on Kaluuya?
I thought you put in a really, really good performance. Obviously, working with a director again, you're probably developing relationships and you know each other a bit more, and you can ask for certain like different aspects of it. But as good as he was, I thought Keke Palmer like stole the show for me personally. Yeah, her character was over the top in that, but there was certain like little nuances here and there that she's a good person, and she's wanting what's best for her and her brother, especially in the aftermath of losing their dad. And that, so I thought, like, as good as Kaluuya was, I think she kind of outshone him a little bit here for me personally.
Todd?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I say, I love Daniel Kaluuya. He is fantastic, and he does put a very good performance in. Like you say, you meet his character at such a shitty time in his life where he has lost his dad, and clearly he was the one, who worked with his dad more. We get that when he's talking about, the first time he went out and trained. It was Jean Jacket, wasn't it? Like the first time he went out and on the Scorpion King set. But yeah, Keke Palmer for me got me straight away. Like where I wasn't sure about the film itself on a first watch, I loved her from the beginning. Like you say, she is over the top, but I think that type of person who doesn't really have a specific job, wants to be part of Hollywood, but she doesn't care which part. She's the type who wants to be famous. Her character just wants fame and wants to be part of it. Like, that's the type of person who's going to be a bit abrasive and a bit loud and a bit much. I genuinely think I could watch them two do that sort of, it's not a high five, but that handshake that they do where they just like sort of five each other over and over again, because there's so much charisma in that one moment between these two people. I thought it was like, it's things like that where I'm like, just rewind it. Just hit the, like, the little rewind 10 seconds button. Just press that again. And I think for me, yeah, she stole the show. I do think there was good performances around. We'll talk about Gordy at one point as well, because I think that was a really interesting thing. Anyway, but yeah, I think Keke Palmer was the show stealer for me.
Fair. Yeah, it's funny because on the first watch, she did annoy me because of the over the top sort of like the over top sort of way she is. And again, on reflection, watching back a second watch, like you see how much, like how well she plays that character, and how charismatic she is as obviously a person as well. It does draw you in. So again, I'm glad that we do these sort of things, because I can go back and retroactively watch things that maybe pick up different bits and pieces, and her performance is phenomenal, certainly in my eyes. Yeah, so you kind of said about Gordy there, Todd, and obviously Gordy relationship with Stephen, is it Yun or is it Stephen Yun? I'm not quite sure like how you pronounce it.
I've always said it Yun, like
Yun, okay.
Yun, yeah.
Yun, okay. Stephen Yun, as dupe. So the relationship obviously, and the sort of like history that the two had. Again, the sort of like the TV show aspect of it, and sort of what consequently happens, obviously, with what Gordy does. This is kind of where for me, it's kind of jarring watching it back. I think it kind of because it like kind of cuts to what happened after, there's like different title cards essentially of the different horses, and then obviously the chimpanzee, ape, gorilla. No, it's not gorilla.
Chimp.
It's chimp. Yeah.
Chimp, yeah.
I thought it was interesting the way that it kind of moved into that, but I did think it was quite jarring. What did you guys pick up from that sort of the backstory of Dupe and Gordy, and what sort of happened?
So at the beginning when I said it's not your traditional horror, it's not a traditional sci-fi alien film or whatever, I think it's a case of, from the very beginning, Peele's alluding to this idea of you don't fuck with nature. Like, there's a respect that you have to have between humans and animals and this alien being. And like I say, it alludes to it at the beginning. You hear the popping of the balloons, you hear the screams and stuff, but you don't know what's happening. And I think the way he sort of splices that in is the only way. Like, as in, he drip feeds it. That's probably a better way of explaining it. Like, he drip feeds this idea. Works really well because I think if they'd have shown that at the beginning, it wouldn't have given too much away because we didn't know what was happening. I'm not saying that, like, I'm then going to go, well, something from nature is going to attack these people. But I just think to have that drip fed, it kind of works alongside the attack from this alien being, in terms of, like, anything can set off an animal. The only reason I was talking about Gordy and the performances is I just had a look on IMDb. I always just have it open just in case I forget a name or something like that. A guy called Terry Notary. I didn't know he was in it. There's a film called The Square. It's a weird old film, but it's worth a watch if you get the chance. And he's one of the main characters in it. He plays Groot on set. In obviously Vin Diesel does the voice, but he plays Groot. He's been like Kong. What was the other one? He was Rocket in War of the Planet. In the Planet of the Apes films. So he's done a lot, and he played Gordy in this film.
He played Cull Obsidian, Massey, in the Infinity War and Endgame. Sorry, Marvel guy.
Yeah. Massey is our resident Marvel man. Taking over. But yeah, I thought they used an actual chimp. I thought it was a real chimp that then obviously things like the hand and stuff reaching forward. I know they're not going to be able to get that shot perfectly, but like I just thought that was an amazing piece of like technical work, especially when, like you say, he hasn't been using a lot of green screens. He hasn't been using a lot of CGI stuff, and if he has, it's been very subtle or very really well done. But I really liked the inclusion of it. I thought it was it built Stephen Yeun's character well as well. Sorry, I've just gone off. Colin?
Yeah, I didn't know what the fuck was happening, to be honest. Like, I like, and you explaining it like that, I kind of understand the nature and don't underestimate kind of thing. But for me, it was very, very jarring. Like Massey said, it was as if, like back in the day, you had your VHS and you could like record over stuff. It was as if I was watching an alien film and then somebody had recorded a monkey going nuts or an ape going nuts in the middle of it, and then it was back to the alien film. I understand it was trying to give a bit more background to Jupe and that, but for me it was like, what the fuck is going on? And in subsequent rewatches, I've just kind of treated it as its own kind of thing within a thing kind of thing. Like the shooting of the scene when you actually see Gordy going nuts and killing everyone, and then there's little Jupe like under the table and stuff, like that's incredible. That could have been like a film in its own right. That could have been a completely different story, and Jordan Peele could have done that as a film about, a TV show about a chimp who then ends up going mental. Like that could have been something in its own right. But I didn't. It was very strange. It was very jarring to me that kind of story choice. But it is what it is. Maybe that's why I didn't rate this as high as the other ones, because it didn't feel as kind of together as the other ones. But I thought the scene where Jupe's under the table, or the kind of couple of shots where Jupe's under the table and Gordy's like reaching out his hand and it's like dripping blood off it and stuff, I was like, that looks fucking sick. And then he gets his head shot and like blown off. I thought that whole sequence was really, really good. But why was it in this alien film? I don't really know. But it was cool to look at.
Obviously, completely agree. I think though this is where, and you said that obviously it was cool to look at. I think that's kind of what this whole movie is for me, is style over substance a bit. Obviously having a cinematographer like HVH in as well, like that, it's gonna be a beautiful film. I sounded American there, didn't I? Beautiful film.
A beautiful film.
A beautiful film. And yeah, it's funny when you say that about like how that scene looked with when Gordy's going mental, because it almost follows. It's the dad, isn't it? He comes in and he like goes through like a little swinging door, and you like kind of see past the swinging door like Gordy go mental at the boy, every so often stuff. Yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah, like bash his head in and stuff. And the whole thing with the shoe as well, like standing upright. I believe that was meant to be similar to that you said about the bad miracles. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I completely agree. I think it was kind of quite jarring. I think the film felt bloated overall to me, and I completely agree. I don't think like I would have been absolutely fine with that not in there. But there were some versions that I thought were quite effective, especially on first watch, when the kids from Dupes or Dupes kids, sorry, come in and dress as aliens, and that whole sequence in the barn when he's like getting kind of chased by them, and he does the Peter Griffin. He says the title of the of the movie. I thought that like on second watch again, I knew what was happening, but on first watch, I was like, holy shit, here we go! Like here's the aliens like coming in to start whatever's happening to things. But yeah, I totally agree. I think I definitely believe it was more like the style over sort of substance. I mean, thoughts. We're kind of talking about style there, so cinematography. Any other kind of thoughts on that, on how it was shot, and like, you know, I know certainly the whole thing was about the night scenes weren't shot at night. It was like shot in the day, but then they did something with like the infrared or something like that, so it looked like darker than night or something. Were you not aware of that, Todd, or was that something?
no, that's news to me. Yeah, it's interesting though because I do think that the dark scenes are dark. The dark scenes are, at times are over dark. That would be like my main criticism.
Well, I think that's kind of what he
That
was going for with that whole shooting the light and then changing the exposure. I'm not a camera operator. I don't know how that sort of stuff works, but apparently that was kind of the sort of reason behind it. And I believe it was all like a big set as well. The whole sort of like canyon that they were sort of in. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Did you know much about that, Collie? The way that they shot the night scenes?
I knew they did something with light, but I wasn't too familiar with how they did it. But yeah, just talking about some of the shots in general, when they've got the big like wacky waving inflatable arm dudes, and they're just the kind of grand vista shot to the canyon, when they've got your man there with the big IMAX camera and all that kind of stuff, like trying to capture obviously the alien. I thought some of those were just incredible looking shots, and it's funny knowing that who the cinematographer was, and then obviously Oppenheimer was released this year, and there's some similar kind of esque big opening desert shots in that. It kind of obviously I don't think it ties up timeline wise, but it feels like an audition almost to Christopher Nolan being like, look how cool I can shoot desert and stuff, and I can film Oppenheimer for you, like that kind of thing. So just tying them both together is pretty cool. But yeah, I get similar to what you were saying, Massey. Amazing film to look at, like absolutely stunning film to look at. But that kind of the other two films, they're really well shot as well. But that's kind of that's kind of like a bit further down the list in terms of what's good about the films, because it's all about the performances and stuff. The other ones, whereas I think for me, the film itself and the way that it was shot overshadowed the performances a little bit. But I don't know if that's just because I wasn't really like into the story as much. Because like when you see the alien and that, especially right at the end, when Keke Palmer's character looks at it and it's like fully like spread out kind of thing. Like it's massive. It's not just this kind of disc thing that like sucks people up or whatever. But it's properly like spread out. It was fucking like beautiful looking, you know. And then the shot when it obviously eats the inflatable thing and then flies away and blows up. Even that was just really cool looking. But again, I don't watch Jordan Peele's films to be like, oh, that film looks good. It's for me, it's more like kind of like, because that's so I know we're going to rate the films, but I'll just say mine now. Like Get Out and Us, it definitely goes Get Out then Us, but for me they're very close together, and a lot of that's because they make me think after the film, or they want to make me think more after the film, whereas this is like, if anybody else had directed it and I watched this, I would have been like, yeah, that's a cool film, like whatever. But for the fact that it was Jordan Peele, I just kind of, I hold him that high standard wise that for me it just didn't live up to it for me personally.
Yep. I mean, completely agree.
Which is a shame, but then I'm definitely going to see whatever he does next. It's not made me go, what did you say he was, Massey? Charlatan.
I didn't say it. Somebody said it.
Somebody said it. Yeah, I definitely would say that. Like, I'm definitely gonna be like interested to continue watching all of his films.
Oh yeah.
But for me, it was just kind of a bit of a. It's very similar to a lot of the directors that we've talked about. That tends to be their last film, especially Chazelle stands out for me. That Babylon was like so far removed or so far over the top compared to his other films that it was a bit too far for me. And then hopefully he's gonna strip it back a little bit for his next film. I hope for Peele it's the same, as he just kind of steps back or goes in a different direction, and that'll bring me back in. I'm not writing him off at all. He's a very, very talented director, and it's a very good film, but maybe it just wasn't for me, I guess.
Fair. Todd?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, I really enjoyed it, but I do think it took a little bit longer to enjoy. And I think I went back to it because of the stuff that intrigued me, because of the stuff that, like I say, I didn't walk out of it at any point and think, oh shit. Like, I still enjoyed it to a level, and it's only, like I say, on rewatches. Like I say, it's only been out a year. I think I saw it at the cinema twice actually, because I felt like it was Charlie big time. I felt like it was one of those that, like, because of HVH and, like, you know, to see it at the cinema and to have it those big shots across it was amazing. I do think the creature design, they could have gone, and I did think at first, I was like, it's a bit safe, like to have a UFO shaped alien. I was like, you could have done a bit more, and obviously they did. But I loved the sort of that final chase. And, like, it wasn't foreshadowing necessarily. It was just the relationship between the two. But when OJ is giving it that, and then she does it back, I just, like, their relationship's such a weird one, because obviously they love each other, they work together, but they're two very different characters, and you see that from the very beginning where she comes in and, like, takes over the safety talk.
Just on that, just because when Massey was saying that, like, the character annoyed him a little bit on first watch, when she first did that, I was like, I'm not gonna like them, just based on that kind of speech that she said, and it's like a million miles an hour. But definitely like turned me around on the character later on. But that's just to mention back when Massey was talking about what thoughts on the character and stuff, it definitely took me out of it. Sorry, Todd, carry on.
No. I think it's fair, like, because, like you say, she is abrasive the entire way through, even, like, blasting the music when, you know, he's trying to get the horses in and stuff. But yeah, like I say, once I stopped sort of looking at it as an alien film, which I was fine with at the beginning, like, I do think it's a serviceable sci-fi film. I think it's a very good sci-fi film. But, like, when I started looking at it as, this thing isn't just an alien, it's like a creature, and you've got to show it that respect, that's where I was brought in. And, like, the Bad Miracle thing, it pissed me off, the shoe at first, because I was like, what does that mean? Is that the alien holding it? I don't know. And basically what I saw it as is a kind of, when you're in those horrible situations, when you're in those traumatic, you know, things that you're going to remember, you do remember the weird things that happen, because they're the sort of the connectors between it. And that's how I saw it. And then obviously when he's got it up in the office, I just stood up still. Like, that was dark. And I think there's dark moments to it. But yeah, overall, again, if we go on sort of, if we're looking at order, I would say in release order is exactly, you know, they have got weaker, but not to any sort of extent, like, as in none of them are weak films. I love all three of them, but I would absolutely say that Get Out is the stronger than Us, than Nope. I just had a little bit of a look as well. There's no sort of news on what the film is, but his next film's Christmas 2024, so we've only got a year and a bit to wait, which isn't bad at all.
Cool.
And he's very involved in a lot of, like, production side of things. Like, he was involved in Black Klansman. He was involved in, and not a lot of people liked it. I personally quite liked it. Was the Hunters on Prime. He was involved in the production of that and stuff.
The
So
Candyman, did he do the?
He did that as well. Yeah, he produced that, I think.
Well, there was Wendland Wild. I don't know if either of you have watched it. It's the stop motion animation thing. It's on net. I think it's a Netflix property.
Okay.
And that was. I mean, it's a Netflix thing. So it's Henry Selick who directed Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's stop it. we are a Nightmare Before Christmas. Anyway, that's worth a watch. So yeah, he is busy, and I'd like to think that he's still doing a bit of comedy. If just you can go down a YouTube hole of Key and Peele, and
so funny.
It doesn't get old. Good. It doesn't get old. And it's mad to think. Like you say, sorry, just to go back to something I said at the beginning. Horror and comedy do sort of tread that fine line where you get such an involuntary reaction out of so many people, but it's mad to think that the man who wrote and performed a lot of those sketches is the guy who's like putting so much into this, and please just go back and watch as much of his stuff as you can because it's genius.
The one that always gets me is the not the choir, the like sort of the Glee Club or something like that, when it's him and Bo Burnham's in it as well.
Oh,
have you not seen that one? Oh, no. Brilliant. So it's like Jordan Peele is like already in the club, and he's like the only like black guy that's in it, and then Keegan McKee comes in as well, and they're kind of like have this battle to see who finishes off the songs and stuff and adds it on. Oh, it's brilliant. Like, you really need to check it out. It's fantastic. Again, I'll put it on our Twitter as well, so folk can see it. But yeah, it's really good. What was I going to say? There was another thing I was going to say, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, yes. So the subtext. So Todd, you said that you didn't think there was much subtext in this one, or there wasn't anything sort of past surface level. Do you think, or is that?
Yes. Sorry, not past surface level. As in, there's. Sorry, I've probably misspoke when I said there's no subtext. As in, I think there was a lot less open to interpretation.
Okay.
I think, like you say, you watch it. And for me, it's all about respecting nature and having that sort of, where your boundaries are. You don't look them in the eye type thing. We get that time and time again. I didn't think that there was anything sort of with the 11/11 thing where we've spent 10 minutes. We could spend longer talking about what that means and the different instances of it in terms of like in Get Out, the way that the little things where the family. You could pick things out and go, I didn't notice that. Does it mean this? Does it mean that? I don't think there is that in Nope. I think aside from the shoe, which is the only sort of contentious issue for me, I think the rest... Hey! We've reached peak podcasting here. Stop it there.
Say it in us voice now.
I don't have a response anymore. I'm finished. Did you think I was gearing up to it there? So yeah, like I say, sorry, surface level, like as in there's no subtext is probably the wrong way to go about it. I think the better way I should have put it was I think it's less open to interpretation than the other two films. I don't think there's as much ambiguity, especially like at the end. The alien is dead. Yeah, but that's the way I see
it. Collie, what do you think in terms of like the metaphors for what it was? Did you sort of like see anything, or what was your thought?
No, I mean, like the only kind of overall theory or thought process of it is when Todd was talking about the don't fuck with nature kind of thing. That's I guess that's kind of like a ground level type thing. I didn't really think there was too much to explore in depth about this, which is kind of again why I don't rate this anywhere nearly as highly as the other two.
One of the things that I kind of, after watching it the first time, reading about it, then kind of catch a bit more the second time was like around the whole, it was like towards filmmaking and stuff as well. So like how the cinematographer was like, would literally put his life on the line for getting the perfect shot. And there's a few little other things as well, like obviously with Steven Yeun's character and his like using the darkest thing that ever happened to him as still a way to cling on to fame and things like that as well. That was kind of like what, from reading, it was apparently was sort of some of the sort of underlying themes and things as well. But again, I think I'm the same as you guys. I think it wasn't as deep as the other ones have been, and again, I certainly the only reason that it wasn't staring you in the face sort of thing. It was more like after reading and look and literally try to find out about what themes there are that I seen stuff like that. Again, back to Logan Paul's tweet, because it was quite a contentious tweet when it came out. That was something that he had picked up on as well, and he even said that it was like, I can't remember exact wordings, but he was like, "Oh, it's not a metaphor for Hollywood," and nah, it's terrible, that sort of thing as well. I'm guessing you guys haven't seen Logan Paul's tweet when it came out. I'm sure it was Logan Paul, wasn't it? But yeah, it was quite. I thought you followed him.
What one's the stupider of the Pauls? Is it Logan?
Jake.
Jake's the stupid one. Okay.
Well, they're both stupid, I suppose.
I was going to say, are they not like just batting heads to see who wins?
Logan's the one that's in WWE and stuff,
yes.
right?
Yeah, and he's got his impulsive podcast.
Jake does the stupid boxing stuff.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So yeah. Okay, well, was there anything else you guys want to talk about with Nope here at all? Anything else?
No, I think finishing it on a discussion about the Paul brothers.
Yeah, I think that
sums up to me. Yeah.
And then the next episode will be about Jake Paul's boxing career, and then we'll do one about Logan Paul's WWE career, I think. So yeah, perfect, cool.
They need their own episode each.
Yeah, of course. In fact, we'll do 2-parters for each of them, I think, and we'll sounds good. And we'll do a lot of research into their careers and stuff. We'll also watch all their Disney Channel stuff as well.
Right, just relax.
Excellent. Can't wait.
Okay, so that was no salt. Just quickly again, I think we've all kind of agreed that the sort of like the rankings of the film is by release. It's Get Out, Us, and then the Nope. I think is that unanimous sort of thing. Yeah, perfect. So nice and easy there. Okie doke. Well, that is us gone through Jordan Peele and his 3 films. I mean, before we finish off, is there anything you want to talk about in terms of Jordan Peele as a director, as a writer? I know we've kind of said we're really looking forward to potentially what he does next. Is there anything you'd like to see him do next, or kind of what's your thoughts on him?
He's one of these filmmakers that I'm happy to just kind of. It sounds like a very easy answer, but I don't think it's the same answer for every filmmaker. You know, Eggers, for example. Where I think there's a lane that he works really well in. I'm interested to just see what he does, because we've seen, like you say, with the writing side of things in terms of other projects he's done. I'm just excited to see what he does. And I think, regardless of how people feel about him, like if you're listening, you're like, oh well, actually these films weren't for me. Like, there's no denying that the guy's a genius. That the guy can make a film. Can write a film really well, but also knows what he's doing behind the camera as well. So yeah, for me, I just think it's a case of just let me see what he's got, and let me see what he does.
Coley?
Yeah, similar thoughts. Like, just I know the guy's a good filmmaker, and I enjoy his work. Even if I enjoy like one of his films less than the other 2, like that doesn't make me any sort of like worried about what he's going to do next. So yeah, roll on Christmas 2024, I guess.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, we will end it there. Before we go, of course, we will announce our next episode, and it is not about the Paul brothers. That is going to be sort of into next year, I think. But the next episode, the next director that we're going to be discussing on the next one is Mr. Ben Affleck, Batfleck himself. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really interested. I've seen, I think, a lot of his directed films, and I'm really interested to have a wee chat about those. I don't know if you guys have seen them as well, or if it would be rewatches, or
I've seen them all.
Yeah,
and one of them's one of my favorite films ever. So
I think we're a positive episode, maybe. Good.
There's one I've not seen. So we'll come to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited because, like I said, the ones that I have seen are interesting films to talk about.
Definitely, absolutely. I think I've maybe missed one as well. I'm not quite sure, but a few of the films that he's done are really, really good. So I'm really looking forward to it. Okie doke. But yes, that is our episode on Jordan Peele. Next one on Ben Affleck. Again, if you are watching, please be sure to like, comment. We'll always talk back to you guys as well, and subscribe, of course, as well. And if you're listening on Spotify, then of course give us a wee follow and let us know what your thoughts are on Jordan Peele, what your thoughts are on Ben Affleck coming up, what your thoughts are on our other episodes that we've done, and the directors that we spoke about there. But guys, thank you very much for taking the time to listen, watch, and of course, thank you again, Colin and Todd, for taking time out of your weekends and spending it with the guy that you love. But guys, thank you very much.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.